With well over 1 million monthly streams on Spotify and some tracks hitting almost 30 million streams, I'm very excited in this interview to be speaking to Reinier Zonneveld, one of the leading forces in techno at the moment. In this interview, we go way in depth into production techniques, how he creates his rock-solid kick and bass relationship, details of how he switches between outboard gear and DAW, and what it takes to really build a world-leading brand and treat your music production not just as a creative process, but also a successful business. He's also got a brand new track out today, the Reinier Zonneveld remix of Showtek's FTS, and his upcoming festival in Amsterdam. So without further ado, let's meet Reinier Zonneveld. Welcome, Reinier Zonneveld. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for making the time to speak with us today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for the invite.
So I guess a best way to start off would be, for anyone who doesn't know you yet, what's your journey been like to your current position? Because you've produced some incredible tracks and you've been doing this for a long time now, and you stand out quite notably because you do live performances instead of just DJing. So perhaps you could give a bit of a background of how you started in music and how that transitioned into the production side of things.
Yeah, I started in music with piano when I was 3 years old. First, mostly classical, but I wanted also to write my own stuff. And back then, this is like 31 years ago, it was always, or you when you do like music, it was very focused, or you do classical or jazz or something, or maybe other stuff you could do pop, but like not so much like nowadays that's more focused on producing and making your own music. I think it's very good that changed. So, but I always wanted to really make something myself. So that's what I naturally did. So I wrote compositions, I wrote just fun stuff, just for fun basically. And then when I was 10, I did my first concerts, classical music. By the time I was 16, I had the choice of going to university or maybe going to music university. It's called conservatorium in Dutch. I don't know the English word for that. Just in the last moment, I decided to not do that and just do a normal study, so to say. Learn a normal job because I was afraid it wouldn't work out with music, and so just to be sure. So I started doing econometrics. Yeah, as soon as I got into university, I had a lot of time on hand. And I had there a piano standing, like a digital piano, because I was still doing concerts, so I was practicing on that. And I had this music software that I got from, I think I was 10 years old, and my uncle is a piano teacher, but he also produces. And he was also the teacher from Layback Luke, I guess. This software, Reason it was called, but I think it was like not version 1, maybe version 2, maybe like one of the first versions, basically. And he gave me a CD with that, and I started to play with that on and off. And then by the time I left my parents' home when I was 16, I had a lot more time on hand, so I would light a funny cigarette, so to say, and connect my keyboard to the computer and pull out this old CD again of Reason, and started playing around with it. One of my roommates took me to a rave, a proper one. I think it was in the time when Minus got really big with Richie Hawtin, and you had the Heartthrob guys, or these artists, like really good sound back then. I still really like that. And we came in there, and like after 5 minutes, I was okay, I want to make this, So I got home from the party, still buzzing, I guess, and fired up the computer and started to produce. And then basically from that day on, I was producing every day, not studying so much. So I failed my studies a couple of times, and then at some point I saw I used to buy like equipment with like in Holland you can get some money from the government that you have to pay back later, So I put it on maximum, and I would buy speakers with this and a synthesizer secondhand and drum computers. So some of them I actually still have also here. I still use them. And so I had a little studio set up in my bedroom. But at some point I was looking at my debt and I was like, I need to finish these studies, because if it doesn't work out with music, I'm completely and then, so then I changed up a bit and started partying and producing. Now producing still a lot, but I started partying a bit less. Because I also really like partying, so I was usually going out like 4 times per week to parties and stuff, which is not the most smart thing to do if you want to get some good grades as well. In a very fast time, I finished like 2 studies. I did 2 masters in the end, and that was in 2014, 11 years ago. And then I was playing already, like my first real show that I played with a flyer and with real tickets on the real location. That was like in 2011. I actually still have the set also here recorded. It was also a live set. I always did live. It was really a fun gig. I was super excited because it was my first real show. But before that, I did always illegal raves. The problem is, illegal raves only cost money. You go there and maybe you help even with some things, like you build it together. I had a good following, especially around Amsterdam and Rotterdam. A lot of illegal raves, and I had a really big following there. But somehow I never got booked in the clubs too much. Like sometimes, or on the good festivals. maybe here and there an opening spot, you know, on like a big stage. But yeah, opening, you also don't really get new fans from it. It's nice to be on the flyer, you know, but I have the feeling that a lot of locals made it very hard to enter this market, you know, because everybody's a bit afraid of his own spot, I guess, when you start out. So I was like starting out, so I got some slots, like for example Mysteryland you have in Holland. Could open the main stage that day, and I did the changeover music between the big acts and stuff. So this was a big step, and I got some smaller venues to play, but it was still really hard to enter, so like on a base that you can earn a living, that you can pay for your food and your rent and stuff. Plus I had some student debt that needs to be paid off. So it was a bit stressful, and then I came back to my parents one weekend and I said like, hey, I got this job offer, and it was like, I did finance in the end, corporate finance and real estate finance, but I like the research side of it, because a lot of things that people do is because of money, like in the world, like world economy. It's for me nice to understand that and study that. I would hate to work in the financial system at a bank or something as an investor. Well, I got this job offer, and then my parents just said like, look, just try to do music for 1 year. You have no study anymore. You have the whole day. Just try it for 1 year, and if you fail, you can always pursue a normal career. And but they were sure. They said like, if you do that, it probably will work. You know, just trust in yourself and just go. Basically, 2 months later, I was full-time touring. It was a crazy time. Yeah, so I got signed on a Steel for Talent. That's a German label from Oliver Koletsky, and he is back then that was one of the most popular labels, a bit more melodic sound. And I sent him some demos, and he called me and he was like, hey, this is great. He loved it, and he actually gave me slots on parties where he was playing, but not as an opener, but after him, like on the big stages. So I gained a really big following in Germany very fast because of this.
Yep.
And then suddenly in Holland and Amsterdam, everybody was like, oh, look at this guy. He's playing in Germany in the cool clubs and the festivals. We should book him. Sort of reversed world, because I'm coming from Amsterdam, you know. Yeah. But then everybody booked me there. And I think a couple of months later, it was the summer of 2016, I was already going to all continents. It was super crazy.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, firstly, like, that's pretty rare from the people I've met and my experience as well, for parents to be so supportive about their son wanting to pursue electronic music production. Usually it's the other way around, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's but I was always my whole life with music, and I think also that they knew that I really loved to make music. That's the most important thing in my life, and so they just said, hey, you will probably be happier in your life if you're going to do music. They believed in that, so very thankful for them, actually. Also, one of the synthesizers I have here, it's one of my favorites. It's the Roland SH101. This one, it's from the
classic,
the classic one from the, I think it's from the 80s or 78, even something like this. And I got it for my birthday when I turned 16 from my dad, because he knew he had this huge vinyl collection with Kraftwerk and all this classic disco stuff. And we would always listen to these old records. Yeah, I was just wondering, like, you have these funky bass lines and stuff in disco. Most of that comes from this, or a lot of comes from the Moog or this 101. So I was surprised, like, he remembered that I liked so much, and he got it for my birthday. And I still use it in my live set. So I have a lot. I can thank them a lot for how they did it with this. Like, to be so supportive of somebody's passion. I think to have some people that believe in you is very important. Whoever that is, can be a good friend, can be maybe your brother or sister or your parents or whoever, you know. But you need some support. It's hard because, especially when you start out, like, I remember a lot of friends from me. Everybody's always like, somehow back then it was like when you start producing dance music, everybody's like, oh, what do you want to be? We want to become Chesto, you know, or Armin van Buuren. This is like feedback you get a lot. No, I just like to make music, you know. And everybody's sort of like, I don't know, sort of hostile against the idea, because a lot of people, I think, also don't dare to pursue their own art or whatever they want to do, you know, like things that are a bit different in as a job in society. There's always a lot of people that bring you down because their own beliefs, they have in their mind that it's not possible to justify for themselves to do something they don't like, you know, kind of this. So it's good to have some people around who really push you forward and really believe in you.
Yeah, that's something I've observed to be the case as well, that most people will project they're wanting to give up on their dreams and try and bring you down, for sure. And it's a delight when you meet people who want to help elevate you, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially if these people are close to you, then at some point you also build like a small. I remember also that I was like in the illegal rave time. It was very nice. Also, there were a lot of good producers actually. Who also, some of them are now on a very high level. But in the beginning, you're all in the same boat. You know, we all love to make music. We love to party. So we would go to set up an illegal rave with friends, and sometimes there would come even like 300, 400, 500 people there. It was like a proper rave, you know, but everybody came there for the music, and there will be multiple live acts even. Like normally in a normal club, you barely see live acts these days, but we had like 3 or 4 live acts on one lineup, just for free, just bringing their gear from the studio, and people started.
Brilliant!
I'm happy that it happened like this, because by the time when I got like real shows for a bigger crowd, I already practiced for like 10 years, you know. Back then I was really frustrated, because I would come, for example, on Awakenings Festival in 2014 or something, 2013, without exaggeration. Every DJ would play at least 1 or 2 tracks that I produced, and they would go off, you know. And then I'm standing there and I'm thinking like, yeah, I could do here. I know these tracks work, but nobody who's there, Carl Cox plays a track of me. Nobody knows that I made it, you know.
Yeah.
And although it's brilliant to be at a good festival, and you're there like just tripping a bit, and suddenly your track comes on, it's even better than playing it yourself, I think. But it's a very special feeling when you can hear it on a big system and stuff. But it's also frustrating, because I would come home the next day and then think like, yeah, maybe it would be nice to get the chance to play, you know, on yourself once there and see how that goes. But on the other hand, because it took so long, I could make all the mistakes in my live set that you can think of, and like also in styles and how to build up a set and how to engage the crowd and how to interact. All these things I could already do for almost 10 years by then. 10 years, like 8 years. On a regular basis, in an environment where nobody really cares. Right. And especially with playing live. For example, the first set I was talking about in 2011, I played for like on a real legal party. I came there with a hard drive, external drive, with all my samples on it, or most of them, and my laptop. And as soon as I dropped the first bass, kick and bass line in, the hard drive spins out and it just crashes. So the hard drive is broken, and 90% of the live set is gone at once. So I'm standing there, and you have like this orange sign, right, in Ableton on the bottom, like the sign of death, sort of, and it says like, okay, cannot find sample. All the samples disappear. And I was like, what am I going to do? This hard drive is broken. And actually, this was one of the best sets I played in, I think, also the years after. I still like that set today. Then I would play, for example, half a year later set somewhere, and if I listen back, it's horrible. Like, I really don't like it, you know? So there was like a lot of difference, because you're still learning, and then with live, and sometimes you focus too much on the production side because you want to sound like a real record. You get completely lost in the moment, and you come up with some nice gems, but then the sound quality is really bad. It would be somewhere between these 2 points. Yeah, I'm happy that this whole learning curve was before I got better known, you know? Because then you already have experience, and you have all the crashes you can think of. My desk is of wood. No, but you have all the crashes that you can think of, like hard drives dropping out, MIDI not working, USB ports crashing. Like, you find out at some point what it is, and you know how to avoid it as best as possible. And then you have a relatively stable live set that usually crashes maybe only once in the 100 gigs or something, you know? And in the beginning, it was not like this. In the beginning, it would crash mid-set, and like this kind of amateur shit, you know? So it's... yeah, I'm thankful that it happened like how it happened in the end, in hindsight.
So how did you, in that situation where like 90% of the set was gone, how did you pull that back and create something good? Well,
I had then, let's see, maybe nice to show some stuff also. This was my favorite drum computer. It's Vermona, this one, the DRM1 MK3. Uh-huh. And I would sequence that off machine. Actually, I used the machine to put my phone for a bit higher. Oh, you have another one.
Was that? It's a TB303, isn't it?
This is a native instrument machine, and this is like basically a sort of MPC style sequencer. I still use it today in my live sets. You can just sequence MIDI, so you can sequence the other drum computer with it. Mm-hmm. Actually, the Vermona drum computer I showed before, the metal thing, it's. It is really, really analog sounding, like really good, but the knobs for the pitch, so for example, you have the kick channel, and the pitch knob, it's all, like every function has its own knob, so it's very hands-on, you can change sounds really quick. It sounds very powerful and good, but the pitch knobs are way too wide, so a kick can go from 20 hertz to literally 5,000 hertz, which makes no sense for a kick drum, but it also makes that you have like 2 tom channels and like some sort of clave-like thing, but these pitches are so wide you can even pitch it like a melody, so it's like a very versatile thing. I would run this through I think a Behringer mixer with this has onboard effects, so you could really, with some delays and some reverb, even from the drum channels, you could make already That is in the minimal techno time also. So you could make these abstract little melodies. And then I had some synthesizers with it. And luckily I had some, like my most important samples, I still had because they were on the hard drive of my laptop, luckily. So I had to improvise a lot, but actually, because of improvising, the set got better because when you play live and you don't have time to think about what you're doing, you go in your subconscious, and try always to find this moment. You get really in the zone. As soon as you start thinking, what am I going to do next? It's going to suck. Always. This is my experience. And when you don't have time to think, you just do something. This is when you really come with the next level stuff, And because everything crashed, I didn't have the time to think at all. And I just started doing things. And yeah, I found actually later that this is the reason why it was good. And this is what I always try to reach now also in my sets.
Nice. So the fact that you started out on Reason as well, as for what you were saying earlier, I mean, I started on Reason as well. You could flip the rack and then repatch everything. So maybe that goes to some way to explaining why you're so passionate about using outboard stuff.
Yeah, this is how it makes sense. Yeah, definitely. I like also from hardware, not only the sound, because you can, I do have some tracks, like some tracks of me are 100% made just on the laptop. Also the mix and master, and some tracks are completely outboard, including the mix and master. And I think if you don't know which track is which, it's pretty hard to say which one is, because digital can sound really good as well. But some things I like for hardware is you have the, especially the ones like I don't like things with a lot of menu diving. So I have here also an analog rhythm, which sounds amazing. It's an electro machine, I think. But it has a menu, so a little screen, and you have to press buttons. When I'm going live and I have this, I don't have time to go in the menu, and I don't want to look at the screen, And sometimes you're in a situation where you cannot even look at the screen because there's a strobo in your face, and I don't know. So this doesn't work. I like the machines like the old stuff, like the one I want to show before, or the Vermona. Every function has its own knob, and you can just blindly just close your eyes, or you don't even have to look at it, and you can just move the sliders, and there comes sound out of it that you want to have. Then you have in the studio, what I like about hardware is that you have to commit to audio at some point. Like you have to say this is it, and then you record it, and then you cannot change it anymore. You cannot recall it. Yeah, it's a good thing, You have the idea that you finished then something. I like the sounds of hardware a lot. Like especially hardware processing in my production is something I really like. So I have here a lot of racks with very high-end equalizers, mostly equalizers and tube distortions and saturators and compressors and things. And I think especially saturation and compression, hardware is still way better than software, I think. But this difference is so little. In the end, if you make a great track, it's a great track. And if it mixed like 90% there that it works in the club, nobody's going to give a that you put a real Fairchild on the vocal or something, Like this is nice, but I can do that now that I have a studio where I have it, but you definitely don't need it. It's just more fun. And if you like good sound quality, it's just a pleasure to work with.
Yeah. And do your mixing all out the box as well, or do you at some stage go into the software to get that final mix?
So what I do, I can show it also. So I have here, this is the stuff that I use most for just in my mix. So you have here different compressors here. This stressor I really like to distort the sound a bit with, actually, instead of using it as a compressor. Then like for vocals, the Fatso I use it a lot for vocals. This equalizer that sounds, some don't like it. I really like it. It gives you can boost frequencies and cut frequency, but it just sounds really good. There's also a plug-in version from Native Instruments that sounds pretty close to the real one, but the real one, it's so easy to get a mix to sound better when you put it through that. Then here a compressor, and then here another tube EQ, I think. This is the saturator, and the Mazalek here.
Oh man, you're making my mouth water.
Yeah, then the one speak better. Yeah, this is like sound porn, really. This one I use it for expanding, so I don't use it as a compressor. Sometimes I do it for de-essing vocals. The settings that I have here also, like for example, you boost with a big ratio. You boost like very aggressive the sub frequencies, but then later you turn the gain down, so you get a very warm, compressed low end, but still controlled, And then this is the SSL style bus compressor, and I just use I think it's called the Dr. Dre setting. It's a 30 milliseconds attack with the fastest release, with 2 ratio, and then just shave off like 1 decibel maximum to glue the mix together. And then I have here a copy of the Fairchild, this one. And this I just use. I barely even touched it. It's just like I run it through all this stuff, and then maybe the compressors are doing like maybe 1 dB of gain reduction or something usually. And just by running it through all of the equipment in tandem, so to say, it will just give a little coloration here and a little more glue there, and all these things on top, and then to a better sound. So does it do it for the mastering? I do the mastering myself as well. And in the mixing process, I do it in Ableton, digital. But sometimes things that need extra attention, I get it out and run it also through the chain, and then more aggressive. So I use then aggressive settings on the hardware here, just to color the sound or make it sound different, or to squash the dynamics, or especially for kick and bass. I've spent a lot of time on my kicks and bass lines always, and on my sub. And if you adjust that with this equipment, you can make insane sounding things. But on the other hand, in the box, like I have also kicks and basses like that are completely made in the box. Like I think "Move Your Body to the Beat" is a good example. It's my best streamed track on Spotify. This track is made on a laptop completely, and the mix sounds. I brought it later in the studio to mix, but there is no hardware in that. But it sounds very organic and analog. It's just when you get the balance right, you know.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that track because you've got this vocal loop in it that ends up creating the texture and the rhythm.
Yeah, it's like in 2017 I did ADE. I did 9 shows with Amsterdam Dance Event, and I had 5 of these talks, you know, during the day. It was like my first really big ADE because I was just broke through, like so to say, you know, like especially in Holland. And I think I didn't sleep the whole week, like literally. So like 4 or 5 days. And maybe a bit, but almost nothing, you know, because we just went from show to do a lecture and stuff. So at some point, at the end of all this madness, I did my last set, and then we even partied a little bit with some friends. So I came back in a friend's apartment in Amsterdam, and I was laying in bed, and after a couple of hours, I wake up completely sweating. I like completely hangover. And then I suddenly get this vocal ID in my head, and I'm like, okay, I need to record this. And I did a voice memo, and that is the actual vocal that's in the track. It's just
wow.
But what I do, because it was a voice memo recorded on the iPhone, so the quality was not that good. So I layered the copy of the same vocal, and then repitched it with just in Ableton. Like, for example, you do like a perfect fifth up or down, or third, you know. So like you make a little sort of chord with the vocal, and then with the vocoders, I think also the Ableton one, and the right input for the vocoder. So you send something. I think I used like something, you know, these eerie string sounds, like this detuned string sounds, but then pitch them a bit down that it matches the pitch of my vocal, and then send that to a vocoder, and just play around with it till it sounds good. And I had all these layers with the different vocoder settings in different repitch settings, and then you put it together, and then at some point you get something that sounds really really full and a nice texture and a lot of tension and drama it gives, because it is basically a chord that swells during the track, but it's hidden in the vocal.
So yeah, that track is an absolute banger. Almost 30 million streams I think you got on Spotify for that.
That's really especially for a track like this, because I made it. And okay, so the vocal means in Dutch it's take another line of coke and speed, move your body to the beat. That's the vocal. The first time I played it, because I forgot about the vocal, I was playing on Loveland on the main stage for the first time in 2018, and a friend of me just reminded me in the supermarket the day before, we were getting some drinks and stuff, like, hey, remember this? I was like, I need to do something with it. So I start my set just with the vocal clean, with nothing else, and then I dropped this beat. And back then this was like everybody was playing 125 BPM, like this drum code sound, you know?
Yeah.
So I come on and I started 138 BPM or something, which was very fast for the time. And there comes this immense, first this vocal with weird drugs vocal on it, and then this immense kick, and everybody was like, what is this, you know? So it actually worked way better than I thought. And then we just released it, and the rest is history. But we never expected from this track to do so well, to be honest.
Because the BPMs have been creeping up. I mean, at Ultra at the weekend, the amount of techno that was like 135 above, there was a lot basically. So you were kind of one of the driving forces for that then with this track.
Yeah, I kind of regret it, I have to say, because it got like it got a caricature of itself. I like hard sounds, but I used to push the tempo a lot. And actually, one time at I'm not going to say where it was because people might figure out which DJs it were, but I was then playing a huge festival tent somewhere, and I had this track Hard Gaan, which is 144 BPM. This went off then. There was no track at that speed, and it has this sort of distorted. It's still a techno kick. It sounds like a reverse bass, you know, like reverse kick, but it's not a hardstyle kick. It's just a techno kick from another track of me that I put an Ableton overdrive on. Just that, and I did it once live, and it actually sounded good, surprisingly. And then I made a picture of the settings, and then one time in the studio I made a track out of it. It started as a sort of live jam, this track. So I finished my set with that, and the DJ after me gets super angry, and they actually had a meeting with 5 other DJs, and they blocked me for 1 year on this festival because of this, because I was playing too fast and it was disrespectless. But I was not playing an opening slot, I was playing 3 hours before the end, so it was really a thing. So I got a lot of problems with this. And what I do like that nowadays are people are more, it got very diverse, you know, you have like lineups and you have guys like Nico Moreno or Jen or Sarah Landry, you know, like they all play hard, but they all play a very different sound still, you know, and or you have like somebody like Indira Paganotha with more psytrance stuff. So it's all fast, but it's also different. So they got more diversity in sound for a lot of new acts, bring their own thing, you know, and this I really like. Yeah, copycats, I would say. So then one thing works and they see a video on Instagram or TikTok goes viral and they start playing the same track. And then before you know, there's like six people who play the same shit. And yeah, that gets very boring, you know, and it's just always been like this, of course. The only thing is that with hard techno, because it's 160 BPM or 150, it gets boring even faster, you know, with every beat. So I think I really like fast and the right sound, but it needs to be the right moment. And for example, my own events, I also try to program it in such a way that you have, like if you have multiple stages, we have like a stage with house, a stage with more classic techno, you know, with things more like the drum code sound or this kind of things, you know, which I really like as well. Or Space 92, for example, which is a bit in between the harder stuff and like this rolling, super nice techno that he did on my label, a really good producer. Or Hilo, for example, you know, like this kind of sound. Mm-hmm. And then maybe hard techno, and then maybe even hardcore, you know, or early rave. This is a nice variation. But for me, a lineup with just the same style can be nice if the people are really into it. But myself, I was like a bit of variation, you know. So it's nice when somebody goes a bit more melodic and somebody goes a bit more trance. I think it's good to have some balance with this.
So you've got your next festival, R Squared, coming up on the 16th of August in Amsterdam. Right. And is that going to be similar in terms of the programming? So you got different stages.
We had last year, we had a really good lineup. I was super proud and happy with that one. We had, let me actually bring it up before I forget some names.
I'll put links to all the tracks we mentioned and the festival, of course, below the video.
Yeah, that's checking at what we had last year. We had Sven Veet.
Nice.
Paul Elstak, but also Scooter. Scooter is the German legend. Yeah. Also on stage with Royksop, Kink, Aam, Todd Terje. And then we had the Unreal stage with the hard techno, Cloudy, Fatima Haji, Kobosu, Klankkunstler. Like it's super diverse, but it's some really great names in there. Angerfist, we had I had it back-to-back with Miss Kate, Basewell. So it's like super diverse. This year will be kind of similar. We have a different lineup, so different acts. Some acts will come back, some of my favorites. But I would say that the lineup might be even better this year. So I'm super excited for it.
Awesome.
I think for the first edition we had like around 20,000 people there, which is really good for a first edition, but the terrain can hold like 45,000, so you have still some space to grow. But we have now also a better idea of like how many stages we do, how we build them. Last year the premiere of the first back-to-back with an AI, so I did there an AI with myself, sort of, because I created an AI that is trained on my own music. So normally I can train an AI system, but they do like Suno, for example, or like other things. They just scrape the whole internet and they just take all the music ever made and then train a system on this, which is, in my opinion, actually stealing copyright. That's my opinion about it. Just out of interest, but also because to make a statement, sort of, maybe about this. I started 5 years ago, in 2019 it was. A friend of me from my finance studies, from econometrics, very smart guy. He told me that he was working with AI in the finance world. Mm-hmm. So, and back then AI was not a hype, so I asked him, we had some beers and some other stuff maybe, and then at some point at 5 a.m, I said, can you show me what you can do with AI? I don't really understand. And he showed me how he could solve some really complex equations that normally take like a lot of time to program just in a few seconds, you know? And then he said, like, should we do something with your music with this to see what we can do? And then this is how the idea started, and then we started to brainstorm what would be cool to do. And in the end, we decided to try to train AI just on my own music and see what happened. Normally, this is not possible because you don't have enough input. Back then, I had, I think, 81 or 83 days of original recordings. I kept everything since I'm young, you know? So it's like 83 days of music.
Wow.
And this is apparently enough to train AI on. So we did this. And then we also, there's a lot of things you can set. Like first we made a system like to learn music theory, basic music theory, but without training on specific tracks, but that it could talk about music and understand music in general. And then when that was done, then we started to train on my own music, and we actually found funny things out with this, because first we just see what would happen if you put in one album, just 16 tracks. And what you actually hear is that you hear the parts of the tracks back repeats and moved around. So that basically was for me, okay, wait, AI is complex, but it's still like sampling, but then way complexer because it can shift samples and do things with it. And the more you start to add, the harder it gets to recognize because it has so much data. But in the end, it's still sort of like a very advanced way of sampling, so to say. By the time we put in all my music, we got, we have now really an AI build that works, and it can do 3 things. It can generate random things, like you just press a button and random spits out 30 seconds of music, or 1 minute, whatever you want. This is the least interesting thing in my opinion. Then you can do prompts, and we have like some speech recognition things, so you can talk to it, and then it tries to make what you request. The problem was we wanted to do this on stage because it's also a cool show element, right? But then we found that the chance, on outliers, so to say, so the chance that something is really good or really bad gets higher the more specific the prompt is. So we didn't dare to try this with this edition yet, so because it has to be safe, because I was playing there on the main stage with this AI back to back. So we wanted to be safe. So then the third thing it could do is continuation mode. And there it just listens to what you do. And then as soon as you press a button, it continues where you left. And this is what we used for the back-to-back. So we had a supercomputer, so to say, with all these NVIDIA cards in it. We had in a container in the back of the main stage with my friend who programmed it to make sure that everything was going correctly. And as soon as I would just press the button, it would start generating, and I could open the channel of the AI, and it would just play in tandem with me, and also kept on listening in real time. So if I changed, for example, some notes or sequences, it would react to this. So you really are sort of playing with something that sounds a bit like yourself, but it's also gives you the inspiration that you normally get when you play back to back with somebody. And it's a very nice experiment to do this. So that's what the festival was about, what we showcased there. It was actually pretty better than I expected. It sounded really good. The only problem was that I think I did in total maybe like 10 to 15 minutes of back-to-back with AI in a 2-hour set. I think it's also enough because I still want to do my own thing. But a lot of people didn't realize when the AI was doing something because it sounded so good, especially because you can play over it yourself. So you can make it sound a bit bigger and better drums and like a bit more produced, And actually after this, like I got a lot of requests also from interviews and things, and then in the end I ended up going to the European Parliament to talk about music rights and AI, because a lot of people don't really understand it. So basically they are now looking for a way to find out how you can pay the artist that an AI is trained on, so they're working now on this. There was a lot of interest there for it. I was actually very surprised because I thought I'd come there and they just say, oh hey, shake a hand and go, It's my view always of, this is what I expected. But then I came there and there were many people from the parliament that were there, and they were really interested in it. Hey, can you explain how this works and what is the problem that you're facing? And they're actually there were also like music rights, how do you say it? Like people in the music rights business were there as well. Mm-hmm. They actually are going to do something about it. They really have this high on the agenda in this sense. So that's a very good thing that came out of this. And I think it's also fair because then, when you train a system on somebody else's art, these people should get paid, and not only the person who programs it.
Yeah. So, I agree with you. Yeah, for sure. One of our students said that he saw you do a seminar at ADE, I think last October, about that, and he said it really interested him. Yeah. Cool. And another one of our students mentioned, or she wanted to know about your label. And it's called Filth on Acid, and lots of your tracks, through listening to them, have got a TB Acid synth line on there. So what was your vision for the label when you started it, and how's that changed over the years? Actually, the name just came about because I started the label with a good friend of me who was back then also my manager. So the idea for the label came about because I had all these tracks that I knew from my live set, because I always do this live set, so you always know which tracks work and which tracks don't work too good. And also sometimes when you play them, you know how to adjust them to make them work, and then you bring this in the studio again. So I had like a bunch of tracks, and in my opinion, these were my best tracks that were crazy on the dance floor, but nobody wanted to sign them. I sent them to like all the big labels back then, and everybody said, no, these are not good tracks. And I knew that they track worked. So I was like, why don't you want to release? But it was just too different, I started the label to just be able to release what I really wanted to release. Yeah, this worked out great. We started and we didn't have money, so I did shows, but everything that would come in, we would immediately put in the label to pay for the promo. We have artwork from the same artist already for many years. And this is hand painted and then gets illustrated
by a designer, and this costs a lot of money, you know. And we did this from the beginning. And yeah, so I just spent everything that I got from gigs to make this label work and do some promotion for it, and bring the tracks to DJs myself, you know, give them the USB sticks from the promos. And then somehow, suddenly, there were some big names like who wanted to release on it. And then I was in Australia. I was working on a track with Carl Cox together, which is a really, really lovely guy, also a really good musician, actually. And we're sitting in a studio in Australia, somewhere in the middle of nowhere. He has this big studio building, and next to it has a garage with race cars, because he also does motor racing. He has Carl Cox Motorsport, so he's also a professional race driver, actually.
I did not know that.
That's super legendary. So he does these drag races, you know, with these cars that go like 500 kilometers per hour or something, like that you need to stop with the parachute and stuff. So he has like this garage with all the mechanics working on 100 of these cars there. And they would walk into the studio and just say, "Hey mate, what you working on?" Blah, blah. Like these Australian guys, they're super fun. And we're making this track, and it was like Inferno, the one we released. And we were sitting there. I was with Christopher Coe, it's a good friend also. He's sitting there, and this is a really big bomb. We made a track. And then he was like, "Hey, you started the label, right? Should we release it there?" And he puts on like a Phil Nesset cap or a shirt or something. "Hey, do you have some merchandise?" He puts on, "Let's make a picture. Yeah, let's release it on your label." Like this. And I was like, sitting there like, "Hey, what just happened?" You know, I couldn't believe it. And it actually happened, and we had Carl Cox on Phil Nesset, and from there everybody wanted to. Everybody sent us demos and tracks, and you could basically just choose from so much nice music. In the beginning, you really had to chase, and it's hard to get somebody's best track when your label's just starting out, so they don't send you their best stuff, even if they already sent something. But when you get some big releases in that were successful at some point, you can choose between so many good tracks, and so this is how the label grew very fast, faster than expected. So you have to have a bit of luck also with this, I guess.
I mean, it's a great track, and you've got that kind of constantly rising triplet rhythm along the whole thing. It's just like, So how did that come about? Because Carl Cox is Carl Cox. So, you know, how did that collaboration come about?
I think the first time I met him in person was, back in the days at the Beatport Studios in Amsterdam. So that's actually where I'm here in Amsterdam, and I have now my own studio building. But you had here just around the corner. It's like where on the industrial terrain you have the warehouse, Elementenstraat. Maybe you know it there. And there's studios above it.
Okay.
And they had the Beatport Studio back then. Christopher Coe, which is a good friend of Carl Cox, he would be there, and they got a lot of like famous acts coming in, and that showed him demos and stuff. Also, I think to give to Carl, you know, and to see if there's some interesting stuff going there. And I didn't know that he knew Carl Cox. So one day, I finally got invited to go there because a friend of me was constantly giving him, "Hey, you should check out this USB with music." And he was like too busy. It's like 100 USB. So he's like, "Yeah, man, you always say it." At some point, okay, let's listen. So he puts it in. I said, "Oh, that's good. Let the boy come in, you know, in the studio." And then I made a track with him together. That was also years later released on Intec, on the Carl Cox label. But then Christopher said to me, like, "Yeah, I have a dinner with Carl tonight." And I said, "Okay, good, yeah, nice." But I didn't realize it was Carl Cox. I didn't know that, you know. So I said, "Yeah, I have a dinner with Carl." I said, "Yeah, what the f*** are you talking about, dinner with Carl?" And I said, "Carl Cox, you know Carl Cox?" I said, "Yeah, of course I know Carl Cox." And I said, "We should give it to him." And then, so he gave the USB, and it was like, how good is this track? Carl says, you know, like, is it a good track? And we're like, "Yeah, I think if you play it, will be the best track of the night." And it was actually a really good track that we made then. So it was kind of a bold statement. He said, Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah, I'm serious." "Okay, I'm going to play it tonight." So he closes Loveland Festival on the main stage. He didn't listen to it yet, and he's just playing. At some point, he's looking to the side, and with the USB, he puts it in, listens to some seconds, and he just mixes in the track, and it blows up the whole stage.
Wow.
Legendary. Also that he just did that without really listening, you know?
Yeah.
Then I started sending more tracks to him. And he was always very kind. Like, it's some guy who really loves music, but also a very warm person, you know, exactly how you would imagine him to be when you see him on stage. He is like this. And it was always, when I met him then in a backstage of Awakenings or something, like when I started my career, I was always taking the time to talk for a couple of minutes and say, "Hey, do you have some new tracks and stuff?" So, slowly, we got to send him some more stuff. And then one time when I was in Australia, he was just inviting me in the studio there. And it was a dream come true, really.
That's awesome, man. I mean, you've got quite a lot of collaborations as well, and you're obviously like an outgoing guy. You're in Amsterdam as well. You're not shy about going and meeting people. How important do you feel that collaboration is for building a career in music production?
Yeah, I think especially also for people pursuing a career in the music industry, I think one important thing that I could say to anybody who wants this, I used to be somebody who always thought I just make music that I think as good as I can and success will follow. I didn't like to be that guy in the backstage trying to connect with. I found it always a bit awkward, you know. I don't want to be somebody in somebody's face, or if there's a DJ playing, I thought it was annoying to maybe try to get to know people. And this is actually a very big mistake that I made. I would say actually, I see it also around me now, like I actually appreciate when somebody comes, and I have to say when somebody comes not like completely on coke, blah 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 with a bullshit story. This is not always nice. But you have like people who come like, hey, so they say hi and say, hey, can I ask you something? I have a track here, and they give you a USB. I can tell you, the people who do that, the chance that I listen to this track is like 100 times higher than when you just send me an email and Instagram message. Like, I found that the people who put in the effort to come to a show and to politely meet people there and make a network, it's actually also part of the job. So you can just do that. If you just be yourself, and if you're not putting yourself too much in everybody's face, but you just politely walk there around and maybe give a demo to a DJ or whatever, or maybe talk with the promoter or with the people in the backstage. I think this is something you should definitely do, because it will just help you, because people saw you and they will remember you. And the next time when you pop up again and maybe play on the lineup, it's like, hey, I met you before, you know, like it's like, actually a really important part to build a network and have some friends or people that you know, especially when you want to get your music signed. It's almost essential, like to send demos out just on Instagram and Facebook and email or whatever. The chance that you get your demo out there and you give it in person and with the good story with it, like why you want to send the demo to the label that you're targeting, is going to bring you so much more. And I wish I would have realized this earlier.
Yeah, I think that's incredible advice. And a lot of producers that I work with, you know, I think they're naturally introvert, or they just think that they want to stay in the studio. But yeah, I've completely seen that. The advice you've just given seems to be entirely true.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome, man. I want to be respectful of your time. We've pretty much covered all the questions I was going to ask a natural way, which is awesome.
No, so
good. Before we head off, firstly, I just want to say that Just Want to Dance with A-Lock, Kilo and Mad Gus, I can't help but do bass face on the drop. So that's a tune. And yeah, so we've got R Squared coming up on the 16th of August in Amsterdam. Going to link to that below. Have you got any other tunes coming out? Any other releases on Filth and Acid?
When would this be online, this interview, you guys?
I would say this month, so in April, if that's good.
Yeah, so I have coming on 25 April. Mm-hmm. One of my biggest tracks I did, I think. It's the official remix for Showtek Fuck the System for FTS. I've been playing this for 3 years in my set. Actually, the guys, I them and they were like, yeah, it's such a classic, maybe they're not sure if they want to release it. And the remix just turned out so good that like it worked so well that they were like, okay, you know what, let's go. So this will be an official release. I'm super happy with that. And the month after, that's not 100% confirmed yet, but I think we're pushing for this date. It will be on Armada actually on 30 May. And I will actually release, I used to do back in the past, like also house and tech house things. Mm-hmm. I actually made a house track. It's just very feel good vibe and a very summery vibe. And I think it's maybe the best track I ever produced. One of the best tracks. And that's coming, it's super random, but suddenly a house track. But I just like, you know what, it. I also like house and tech house in general. I can just put it on here for a little preview.
Nice.
Yeah, so that is coming.
Nice. And, I'll link to that then. I guess it's going to be a pre-save link if it's coming out in May.
Definitely. Yeah. So I'm excited for that. And then after a month later, I will release another track. So basically, I will just do 3 really big releases coming. I'm really happy. I will also link, maybe if you have a pre-save link, I will also send that for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. That's actually just thrown up one more question for me, which is, does changing genre, do you ever feel that it's going to affect your brand or what people are expecting when they come to a Reinier Zonneveld gig?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a very, very dumb thing to do, actually. If you're looking at sales, you know, and like if you want to do it if your job is to maximize profits, so to say, then I would definitely not change genre and just make one look for Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. just make one exact sound that everybody knows. When you click it, it will be similar to the previous track, but different. This is how you're going to get as much streams as possible and maybe as much money as possible. But I'm actually looking at being happy with, I like to make music, and of course it's also a job, so it's not always happy, and it's actually a lot of hard work involved and a lot of mental, like a lot of stress to keep the business running. And I run a lot of my business myself also. I have luckily also a great team around me with some good professionals for things, but I do a lot of management things myself. So you're basically working day and night, but I do that happily. And like, for example, we did a tour where we're just literally in 1 weekend flying 50 hours, you know, and then 4 days later we fly again 40 hours, and then we go to Australia, and like it's really extreme. Yeah, so tour schedule like this for me, I only do this if I like what I'm doing. So as soon as I'm not 100% liking what I'm doing anymore, like when I go in the studio, I make something I love to make, you know, so I'm listening to it myself also, then makes me happy, you know, like I made something in that moment that I like, and this is what I always do. And for this, I can travel the whole week and I still be happy because I can make the music I love, you know. So this is the reason why sometimes I jump around between genres, or like now I play my sets a bit harder than I used to do. And at the moment I really like this, but maybe in a couple of years I play minimal techno because I also really love this, and I got tired of hard techno. So you never know, you know. And luckily people seem after many years started to understand this and they're more open for it. But in the beginning it made it very hard because people didn't know what to expect when they booked me.
Yeah. So for a newer producer looking to make a name for him or herself, would you say sticking to one genre makes that easier?
Yeah, actually the tip I would give, and this maybe sounds very dirty, but an honest tip I would give to a producer: if you want to make a name for yourself, just look at the Beatport top 10, look what everybody is playing, make something in that style and send it to the label that the hit was on. And don't copy a track, but make something in the style. So for example, if everything was, at some point you had all these tech house tracks, I think now Afro House, if you call it like this, is very big, or like what Anima plays, these tracks. If I was an upcoming producer, I would try to produce in a really high quality, a track that is not not going to steal something that's super sad, but like do it in this style, but put your own soul in it, but really stick to the style of this label, and then give it in the right way to the label owner, to the A&R. Go there with your USB with one killer track that fits exactly the label, give it and sign it, and this will make everybody know your name. And then after that you can do what you want, but at least everybody knows you then, you know. So this is maybe it sounds a bit but this is the actual advice I would give to somebody who wants to get his name out there.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, man, and thank you for your time. I'm sure that everyone will have got a lot of value from this. I certainly have, so I really appreciate it.
That's super nice to chat with you. Thank you.
Cool. All right, so I'll edit there, and then I'll do the outro, and I'll link to everything that we mentioned as well.
Cool.
But yeah, just thanks so much, man. I've really enjoyed this.
Very exciting. Thank you, man.
All right, pleasure.
See you around there.
And yeah, take it easy. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
I hope you've enjoyed this interview as much as I did, and don't forget to check out Reinier's music using the links below this video, and of course his festival as well. If you want to see more interviews like this on the channel, let me know in the comments whom else you'd like to see me interview. And a few weeks ago I had a chat with Oliver Heldens backstage at Ultra, where we got some very interesting insights into what it takes to go from a very young producer up to headlining one of the biggest festivals in the world. So you can check that interview out there. But if you enjoyed this one, let me know in the comments, give it a like, share it with your friends, and again, a massive thanks to Reinier for taking the time to share some of his tips and wisdom on the channel. And thanks of course to you guys for watching. So I'll catch you over at that next video.